And thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Kelly Stewart here, Managing Director of Newcastle Consulting. We're a risk management consultancy, mainly concentrating on facility security design, risk assessments, and a couple of the security intel aspects. And I just want to touch it light. It's there on the screen for you. In terms of the aspect we just talked about, I'm not going to regurgitate what the other speakers have said. I mean, they said it very succinctly and very well. The one thing with project management that we've noticed with this type of technology, you look at just the simple process of planning, execution, and monitoring, and it just truncates that whole entire aspect of what you're doing. Because, like Scott mentioned, the biggest issue that security people have is always getting drawings or getting specification as to what do you have? What am I looking at? Where are we going with this? And this solves a lot of that visually. And just to put in another quote in there, it's, a picture is 1,000 words. And it's that because you're able to simulate, you're able to see a field of view, you're able to actually recognize what exactly am I trying to protect? What am I going to do with the assets that I have in this particular location? How am I going to design certain things in a particular way and do it efficiently and effectively? And I think the technology that's out there, and you've already seen it with BIM just being used even before photogrammetry or LiDAR were even exposed into this area, that it truncates that process. And then when you get into that assessment and inspection and reporting, as you see here, the biggest ability that you have is you're trying to present a gap analysis. Okay, what don't we have? What do we need? Where do we need to go? How is that really going to look? How is it going to make it efficient and effective for what I got to present to the stakeholders who, quite frankly, this is where this is all ending up. We alluded to it a little bit, and sometimes we don't want them so much involved, but obviously they're going to be involved, but it's also a great way to inform them and educate them on exactly this is what you have, this is where it's going to go. And from a business perspective, here's what it'll do for you. You'll have a record of it, you will be able to see it, you'll be able to monitor it, and you can see its progression from not only day one when it was a simple construction all the way to its completion, and then maybe into the future as what do you want to add on to it? Where do you want to expand upon what you already have in existence? So the visualization piece, I think, is very critical. And it goes in many other spheres that we probably don't talk about with regard to simulation, with regard to policies and procedures. And I look at it also from being a former chief security officer, a strategic perspective, because I have to understand, okay, how am I going to train my people? What are they going to look for? Once I put this construction and design into place, how do I exactly look at educating them and helping them understand what we have? So that then when we move into pieces of crisis management and emergency management, we can tackle those things effectively. And by knowing and understanding what is there, because it's done visually and with precision, you're able to do that a lot more effectively.
Exactly. So we had a question from the audience if the screenshot here was showing a software called Easy Set Go, and yes, that is absolutely correct. So basically, with the report narrative writing, it's an exhaustive process, which Kelly, Jennifer, and others would be able to tell you. So what we're showing here is a really cool way where we take deep links, which are very specific pointers to certain things, risks, vulnerabilities, inspection violations, whatever it may be, and we drop those links within our report writing. So whether it be a Word document or whether you're using a software like this, now you can click to that specific link, and you may have a complex refinery. Well, we'll bring you exactly to that location, display the imagery, the CAD, the BIM, the LiDAR, whatever is showing on the screen. So it allows you this access point to the virtual world when you're looking at reports and give this kind of dynamic feeling. But appreciate the question and good eye on whoever asked that. So Kelly, take us through your process here. What are you looking for in a risk assessment, and could this be done virtually? Is it being done virtually? What are we looking at here that is critical that visualization plays a role?
So many of my clients and what I'll focus in on is the pharma industry as well as oil and gas, just like Scott. And what they look for is critical aspects of obviously compliance pieces that they have to meet, but also going over and above the bar. Most of them in the government sector where, like Jen alluded to, you're dealing with a lot of regulations and a lot of aspects. So what do we do from a process assessment standpoint to cover all those aspects? And this is where the visualization comes in. We want every inch of what we do covered. So where I start in the process is obviously it's more of a deep dive into how does that organization work prior to even stepping on site. But here again, this is where visualization comes in play. You can actually use the technology to your advantage and do a virtual assessment. For the past 9 months, that's actually all I've been doing is virtual assessments where you'll have a body on there, but because of the regulations, because of COVID, you can actually just have 1 or 2 people do your entire thing. I don't have to show up. So, and nor does the client. You'll probably have a site facility person there, but then they can tour and go around the entire facility without anybody getting into kind of any danger.
Yeah.
As long as you know what it is.
And I think, that's a really good point too. And you're looking at it from a very specific subject matter expertise. Sam, he's going to look at this project from his expertise. Jennifer's going to have a completely different kind of view on things. So again, kind of being able to collaborate virtually and to give expertise without having to do this, travel to site, go through safety training, go through have a babysitter walk me through the facility, and then have only an hour in site to record all this information, and write my report a month later, and now I'm dealing with 100, 200 photographs, and we forget things. It's a game changer, I think. Yeah, so digital twins got a real strong role to play there with the collaboration, planning, and whatnot. And I think kind of bleeding into hazardous environments. This is where it's at its most critical. So a little conversation. What are you looking at from a risk perspective? And then Sam, I know you guys do a lot of this kind of stuff with hazardous materials, and Jennifer as well. And I know that Scott works in oil and gas. So why don't we kind of talk about hazardous environments here and what's important and how visualization can help. So go ahead, Kelly.
Sure. So, I mean, actually, you alluded to it. What I normally do when we do these virtual assessments using the software and everything, we actually bring the team together, meaning people of other disciplines, just like you just mentioned. And then we go over every inch of what we took a view of so that we can cover every aspect of, okay, what has to be covered with regard to the design that the client wants to do. And then how do we set this up in a succinct fashion? Now, again, concentrating completely on the security aspects, because that's the portion I'm dealing with. But then we also have the safety and health people involved. We also have the operational facility people involved, and we have the business folks involved, because then they have also perspectives on each one of their departmental areas that we'll cover. So it gives a great viewpoint on, okay, how do we go from design in terms of looking at it from a schematic all the way to 95% completion? And you can do that once the imagery is done and then cover every aspect of what they want to cover.
Excellent. Sam, some perspective from you, from an A&E side of things?
Well, I mean, I think everything that Kelly just said was absolutely spot on. And in AECOM, we have a very large environmental practice that covers a lot of different hazardous material assessments, classifications, things of that nature. And the use of reality capture in there is pertinent to their design activities and their abatement activities and whatever it may be. I think one of the major benefits that you see from this as well is just simply the fact that you can minimize the amount of exposure by sending less people for less time to get into these areas that, let's face it, nobody really wants to go there in the first place. And you probably had to fill out 700 pieces of paperwork just to get there. So the smaller, less is more, right? Let's send less people in there so that we can turn it essentially into a desktop exercise that we can there share with our clients, management, stakeholders, everything of that nature, and do it in a safe manner.
Absolutely. Actually, we're seeing a lot of this in Latin America right now with U.S. corporations, and the fact that they can't fly out to Mexico City to go do their walkthroughs right now, or provide oversight recommendations and analysis on their facilities in Colombia or Peru or even in Asia. So it really is a game changer. We're basically eliminating the need to travel for a lot of applications. So I'm going to segue back to Kelly and Jennifer to talk a little bit about how design affects response. And especially when we're looking at hazardous materials, or in this case, this image came from a previous presentation where just simply bringing the fire department through the facility in person, they were able to find out that none of their fire hose would have actually connected to the C hooks, to all the connections in the building. So what a find, right? And what a tragedy it would be if they couldn't even tie in. But Kelly, talk to me a little bit about design and response, and how this is critical.
Well, with anything, it actually goes to detection. And what are you trying to detect? And that has to go into your design. So look at from the perspective of, okay, think about with the end in mind. What am I trying to create here? And given that creation, what am I trying to protect? Now, once you do that, then it's about, well, if I'm going to protect it in such a way, what kind of response am I going to have to that once I detect something? So you're actually looking at an overall design and pathway of, what are you trying to do? How are you going to get to what you have to get to, and understand where that is? And visualization helps that out completely. Whereas before we were working on, essentially CAD drawings. And from a tactical perspective, where I usually take this, and that's the other hat I use, because that's what I used to do, is, well, now I can see things visually. I can understand what I got to do to attack the problem more efficiently. And it's a lesser response time to deal with that problem, deal with that issue. And this comes into play when we're dealing with emergency management and crisis management, which we alluded to before. So a response is actually, again, it goes back to the whole aspect of truncating that time frame of, how are you going to deal with it more efficiently, more effectively, and then how quickly can you respond, given you can see exactly what you have in that area, given it's a snapshot of time. But then you obviously know, and you can also have someone who's really green who later will say, okay, this is what I got in this area. This is what I got to do. This is the equipment I got to bring. And this is how I can affect a proper response to it.
So knowing your assets and knowing a lot of information about what you have in your facilities is critical, I'm presuming, from your perspective. We're right at the hour mark. I think we're going to stretch it another 5-10 minutes and then get into a Q&A, if that's okay with everyone. Sam, a little pivot to you. Asset tagging, managing facilities. How important is it to have visualization, and maybe a little bit of a BIM versus imagery? Like, what do we have for options here?
Yeah, so I mean, from the BIM perspective, the asset management is really nice, especially on your new builds and things where you have an asset registry that you can bring directly into a program. When you're able to look at the side-by-side, the 3D imagery and the model, either design or created from the existing conditions, utilizing the Forge and Fusion apps through Autodesk BIM 360 side by side in Visual Plan, you can see some of that metadata that you've placed behind the data. So from a design and engineering perspective, where you're going to be turning over to an operations and maintenance, basically understanding the FAC ops, I think it's incredible. It's incredibly important. But then also just from, and someone earlier mentioned about existing facilities versus the new builds. Well, I mean, there's a whole lot more existing facilities than there are new builds right now, right? I mean, maybe within the next 50, 60, 70 years, that'll change. But right now, majority of them are existing. So the ability to go in with ease, to quickly capture the information that you need to capture, to organize it in a fashion that can then be sent into your asset management software, whatever software that is, in both directions, right? The both directions is the critical point. It really helps to take us towards that 4D, 5D perspective in the asset management triangle.
Absolutely. And a great point there, being able to take a deep link to a particular asset, a room, a space, and to take that link and just simply place it in a facility management, construction management, or asset management software, and to be able to take something that is really just text database driven, work order driven, but then have a link to be able to virtually visit that facility and to verify and validate things. Really, really valuable. Thank you. Things that we get into, complex instrumentation, electrical, you can kind of think of all the different assets where we have complexity where being able to see it and to be able to label it and to have properties, what belt size, what filter do I need, to be able to prepare people that were responding, not necessarily from an emergency situation, maybe it's a repair situation, bring the right tools to the job the first time and be able to create some efficiencies are really big. And one other example that we recently had, we scanned a facility for a major pharma company called Sanofi, doing an acquisition in San Francisco, and COVID prevented them to fly out and see their facility. And the fact that they're spending tens of millions or whatever it is on this acquisition and can't even see what they're buying is pretty crazy. So we went in, scanned 110,000 square foot facility, 2-floor roof and site in about 4 hours, processed same day and delivered same day. And by that evening, their security team, their facility, HR, you name it, we're all crawling through here and just gaining nuggets of value. So I think it's a really interesting case from an M&A perspective to kind of look at. And we're going to kind of close down this conversation. We're trying to take you through a journey of the facility life cycle, from design to project management to inspection and compliance, and into kind of what we're going to finish on here is in the maintain, respond, and repair facilities. When you have visualization and to be able to document assets, it is such a critical thing for be able to set up effective preventative maintenance programs. A couple we can just mention very quickly here are something as simple as a steam trap, which fail traditionally at 20% per year. Could you imagine you have 1,000 steam traps where 200 are going to fail? This one simple application, which is well known in the industry, is representing 3% of all energy loss in these high steam producing facilities, pulp and paper, food and beverage, oil and gas. So, but the challenge here is that our facility gurus, those that know the facilities well and know exactly where those steam traps are located, they don't have the time to go out and address that 10-minute test that's so critical for the bottom line at the end of the year. So to be able to have the information retention within a digital twin so that we can build repeatable processes and to be able to explain to a junior person where to go, how to find it, what to do is just absolutely invaluable. So when you kind of think about digital twins from a process driven, there's a lot of processes that we depend on visual information from which we need to use to navigate these complex infrastructures and be able to do our job efficiently and effectively. And that's kind of what comes in is taking all these data sets, the ability to communicate, the ability to share, the ability to not have data in silos, and to be able to use this data effectively to do things more efficiently and productively. And I'd like to thank all of our speakers today for their time and their expertise. They've got some great ideas, a lot of knowledge shared today. And we actually have quite a few questions from the audience. And I know we're just over timing here, and I just wanted to close the formal discussion off and just get into some Q&A.